Alright, so boom. So we're doing episode 3 of the Real Housewives of F1 or Drive to Survive, whichever you want to call it. Basically, this episode was looking out for number one. Um, the whole episode was just a recap of like Toto's decision. So like basically, the only black guy in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, the GOAT, obviously, 7-time world champion, he decides to go to Ferrari. So he was like, the car's not getting better. And, it's a chance to go to like a household name in not only Formula One, but just cars in general, Ferrari. So he's leaving. So now Toto's stuck with this decision of like, okay, who's going to replace a 7-time world champion who brings us so much sponsorship and money and has so many different programs? And he was like, should we find another star? He's like, should we just replace him with Max, another global star? Should we have George rise up in the ranks as the leader and bring in a young talent, whatever? So that the whole over arc of this episode is just his decision. That literally all it is. Like there's tidbits of like little subliminals because you have they talk about like how Lewis's decision came out of nowhere, like for Ferrari, like there was no discussion with it or anything like that. Like he had talks, and they brought it up because there was whispers about because nothing stays a secret in this in this game. Everyone knows everybody because it's so small, so everybody be talking. So there was whispers of Lewis talking with Ferrari, but there was nothing concrete as of yet. And so they asked him like either the end of the season before, like early in the last season, like, oh, we heard there's some talks with Ferrari. Is there any talks with them? And he was like, nope. And then 8 weeks later, it came out like, yep, they they are secured a contract. So how in 8 weeks you secure a multi-million-dollar deal? Someone needs to teach me that lesson. Anywho, so that is like the beginning of the episode. Now the main juice of the episode are the two races, Silverstone and Spa. However, it's Netflix. And now I realize why people that actually watch F1 don't like Drive to Survive. Because they just miss so much crucial information, but it's to paint a story that they want to tell for each episode. Because they have a specific plot line in mind. Basically, this whole plot line is George ready to lead? Is George ready to step up and be a leader and they're going to bring in young talent? That's basically the whole overarching story. So they start at Silverstone. Silverstone is actually the home race of both of them and Mercedes. Basically, because both Lewis and George are British, so like Silverstone is like the big home race for both of them. They go talk about the race. They're talking about like George is qualifying and Lewis hasn't been as on touch lately with qualifying, whatever. I don't even think they talked about that. They actually did not mention that, which thank God, because Lewis really was ass at qualifying this year. Don't know what's up. I don't know if it was car. We're gonna let bygones be bygones. Essentially, George gets pole. Great for him. We love that. Lewis gets second. So a Mercedes front row lockout, which is looking really good because their car hasn't looked good that whole rest of the season. So this was a really good look, especially at their home Grand Prix. Like it was cute. So let me get to the race. The race happens, and honestly, it was one of the best races of last season. Like it was rain, it was different leaders. McLaren got in front at some point. It was really up to like the drivers, and those type of situations is kind of like you have to be a really good driver and experienced to know like what a dry line, a wet line, what's the best tire strategy, everything like that. You're actually the one calling the shots the most time in that situation whenever there's rain or anything like that because you're the one on the track, so you're the one that feels everything as it's going. So this was kind of like the time to show like, okay, George has got it. He's already in front. There's rain. Let's see if he has the experience to call the shots. So they go through the whole race, like whatever, like basically when it starts raining, the Mercedes starts looking slower. Both Lewis and George fall back. McLaren goes up in front. It's like 1-2 with Lando and Oscar. Long story short, the Mercedes ends up back in front. Lewis gets a really good call for tires. He like stays on dry tires almost entirely until it gets like really rainy. Goes on intern, goes back on dry. Perfect race. Like it was actually Lewis Hamilton's ninth win at his home race, the most ever wins for anyone at their own home race. But Netflix did not mention that conveniently. They did mention, however, how George messed up, like he wasn't really on his game or whatever. Or I don't even think that. I think he was. Actually, if I remember correctly, he DNF'd. Not his fault. It was basically the car was overheating, whatever. There wasn't like water cooling system wasn't working. That's what happened. The water cooling system wasn't working. He doesn't end up finishing, and then Lewis wins that Grand Prix. So they're like, oh, we still haven't seen George like call the shots or whatever. So this whole story is focused on George because that win for Lewis is really big. Like I'm not gonna go into it, but Netflix really just dropped the ball on like showing the whole story for that. We moved to Spa. Spa is another race where there's rain and just a bunch of other stuff, and the tire strategy was really, really reliant on the drivers, like the drivers having to call the right tire strategy. So what ends up happening is George calls a tire strategy instead of doing 2 stops. So everyone else behind him that's like already behind him, because he's in front right now. He got, I think, pole in this one as well. Like Mercedes did pretty okay in this one. Lewis was a little bit further back, but ended up working his way forward. And everyone's doing a 2 stop. Everyone did a 2 stop. George does a 1 stop. And so he was like, no, I'm feeling good on these tires. I'm going to do a 1 stop and go all the way through. Lewis is like, oh, so y'all going to let him pull a 1 stop on me and get in front of me? He's like, all right, cool. I'm not going to be here next year. You know what? Let him have it. I guess he's our number 1 driver. He goes up, ends up winning the race, right? From that tire strategy call. He like wins it because he does the 1 stop and it actually pulls through, and Lewis doesn't catch him because his tires, like, we're losing a bit of pace, but like they didn't lose enough for him to catch him. So they're like, oh, George called the shots. This is a great race. He won. Blase. Now he's like, you know what? We've officially made it. Like, you are the leader now. You can step up and fill the shoes, and we'll get some young talent. That's going to be that was the decision maker for Toto. What they did not talk about, because that's the only thing that Fit Netflix mentioned, what they did not talk about in the main story of that race, he got disqualified after that. Like, George literally, because of that call, disqualified. Like, his car was too light because when he ran down those tires so much, it caused it to be too light to be regulated. Like, basically your car has to be a certain weight, because if you're running too light, like, it'll make it faster. And so because after the race his tires had basically less rubber or whatever, or if it was before or after, all I know is his car was too light. He got disqualified, and Lewis ended up winning that one by technicality. They did not mention a peep of that. Not even once. That was, yeah, this is getting very long-winded, but like, I was just so shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I was like, damn, Netflix really is like selling a specific storyline, and they are not moving from that storyline, because they missed a whole crucial part. Anywho, just to fast forward, so yeah, they end up going with George and then hiring, I'm gonna show y'all, this new kid. So the new kid over on whichever side, this one, that is a 17 or 18-year-old now, because he just turned 18 like a few months ago, driver through the Mercedes junior team, everything like that. He's supposed to be the new head talent, whatever. They're like, you know what, George, you can lead the team. We're gonna have this new young driver, and we're gonna rise him up through the ranks. So that is basically the whole arch of this episode, was like Toto's decision to like put George as the lead car and then like have Kimmy come up. I was just like, well, they missed a lot of key points there, but I guess if it fits a Netflix story. And my conclusion drawn from that, I realize now why people that actually watch Formula One don't like Drive to Survive. Because they miss so many details. But I guess if it fits the storyline, it fits. We got to know the reasoning why Kimmy got picked, and we move on to the next.